Deb is not here today. She's off on one of her summer break trips, and that's okay because we have an awesome guest. First time on the show officially, um, as far as what we're going to be putting out there. But he's been on the show before because our first episode got messed up. So always hate when that happens. Anytime, but definitely hate when that happens to a guest. This we have our friend Nick Hauser. What's going on, Nick?
Hey, hey. Thanks for having me again. First
Again,
time, kind of.
I know it's weird. It feels like I'm recording with a different person. Last time I believe you had a hat. This time you have the hair, the different hair color going on, which I believe you mentioned was going to happen in the last episode. So it's like I'm recording with a different person this time.
Yeah, absolutely. I made All Stars for the first time, Little League All Stars
Nice.
as a coach. I never made it as a kid, but I made it as a coach, and the kids wanted me to bleach my hair with them, as is tradition. So
That's awesome.
I folded to the bullying and the peer pressure of a bunch of 10-year-olds.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, when I was playing All Stars in when I was younger, there was I never did anything crazy, but there was always a couple guys that either did the different hair color, either it was like the orange hair or something, or uh, they had somebody put something in the back of their head. You know what I mean, with the clippers,
The
usually like their
designs.
number or something like
Yeah.
that. So nothing like that for you though, right? All your hair's still there.
All my hair's still there. Yeah. It doesn't like say coach or anything in the back.
Okay. That's awesome, man. Well, I'm
Although
sure
I'm
that
thinking that's a missed opportunity now.
hey, there's always next year. I'm sure you guys will be back. How did All Stars go?
It could have been better. We won one. It's double elimination. We won the
Sure.
first. We lost the next two.
Ah,
Yeah.
man, it's tough. Those are always fun tournaments, but it is you see the kind of competition that's out there, and man, some of those kids are really good.
Yeah. Yeah. We got absolutely hammered on one of those games. It's kind of embarrassing, but
Yeah,
I don't know. It is what it is. With the Heat being 111, I can't say I'm too disappointed we didn't play 3 more days.
that's so you guys missed the Heat, or were you guys right in the middle of it?
We were right in the thick of it. Our
Ah,
first game
dang,
was we played 5:45 p.m. and first game was like 104 and second game was like 108 still.
man, that's brutal. My one of my uh craziest we ended up losing, but one of my best and craziest memories from playing in pony ball. I was in, let's see, I must have been 12. I think I was 12 at the time, and we were in the playoffs. It wasn't all stars, but we were in playoffs, and it was I think like late May, early June. Um, it was our first playoff game or second playoff game. I can't remember, but it was like 110 that day, one of the hottest days
Mm.
of that season, and we went extras, and so it was a Friday
Oh,
night. We played
brutal.
seven. I think we ended up getting eight in that day, still tied. We had to play more the next day. And so we had to come back the next day. Well, the next day was even hotter. It was like 112, 113. And we went another five.
Lord.
So I think it was a total of a 13 inning game. I pitched a complete seven. One of my teammates pitched six. And to this day, probably still the hottest game I've ever played. And it was insane. My dad still talks about that to this day. And as a coach yourself, you could appreciate how much that would suck on multiple fronts, not just from the heat and having the kids out there, but then also, playing that many innings with your lineup is a real pain.
Yeah, for sure. I was just standing in the dugout and I was pouring sweat. I couldn't even imagine like these poor 10-year-olds in baseball pants in the direct sun. It was brutal. I honestly, when we got eliminated, I don't think they even really cared much either. They were over it.
No, they're like, hey, who's got the pool? Let's go to that person's house right now.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
I think there was a splash pad. There was a splash pad at the park, and they were our post game huddle. They were like eyeballing the splash pad. So we were like, you know what? Good season. Congrats. Go get it.
just let them go.
Yep.
That's awesome, man. Well, man, I love baseball. I could talk about that all day, but that's not why we have you on the show today. Um, you know, it's gonna feel a little bit weird because we've covered a lot of this stuff, but it'll be fun for me at least. It'll be fun to talk about again. Um, Usually we start the show off by explaining how we're connected to our guest, and at the time, last time, I couldn't remember how it was. I knew it was through social media, but I couldn't remember how it happened. Then you reminded me, so now I know it was through our runner-up for the Guest of the Year tournament, Danny, and so I'm guessing through the end of the year tournament was kind of how we got connected. But she was an awesome guest, an awesome person. So uh, we're still connected through social media, but that was kind of the connection point was Danny, and since then you've been an awesome follower of the show and of our social media. Always kind enough to chime in when we put questions out there and all those different things. So uh, glad to finally get connected with you. We've done it once before. We're here to do it again, and definitely excited to talk more about what you do, man, because you're doing a lot of awesome things. And so, that's pretty much how we're connected, man. So tell me a little bit. I know you've done it before, but tell me a little bit about who you are, what you do, and who is Nick? Who is Nick Hauser?
Yeah, thanks. First of all, thanks again for having me on. And shout out Danny. She posted about the podcast. That's how I got turned on to it. And it was that stereotypical long time listener, first time caller type thing. And then I just always had something to say on all the polls and all the questionnaires and everything. So it's cool to be on as a guest. But yeah, so I am born and raised here in Sacramento and worked in the nonprofit world for a while and still kind of have my hands in that pot a little bit as just kind of I do nonprofit marketing on the side for any of the amazing nonprofits that just need a little more help. I love storytelling, and I feel like all these nonprofits have great stories to tell. Um, so that's fun. By day, I'm a writer. I work in internal comms. It's kind of like a in-house reporter, which is cool. I get to go chase stories down and not just write about policy. And I think there's a perception that internal comms is a little boring, but I kind of create what I want to create, so that's kind of cool too. Um, and then, my favorite title is dad. I'm a dad of two kids. I have a 10-year-old son, a 7-year-old daughter. Uh, I'm firmly in my sports dad era. My son plays little league. He tried flag football. He plays basketball. He plays soccer. He just joined a travel baseball team. My daughter plays soccer. She does dance. So man, we got stuff going on all the time, year round. So work the job, have the kids, and then in the tiny spaces in between that, do the freelance uh, marketing help with the nonprofits. So it's busy, but I love it.
That's awesome, man. That's what we joked about quite a bit last time. Is that it's crazy that you were able to squeeze this podcast in because you are incredibly busy. So we definitely appreciate you not only jumping on the podcast once but twice. And I wanted to mention the your handle. So your handle is dadding greatly on Instagram, and it is
Mm-hmm.
funny, man. It's kind of gotten to the point for me where it's almost I have to really think about calling you Nick. You know what I mean? Because I'm so used to seeing your handle. And it's like don't call him Dadding Greatly, call him by his real name. But it's a very interesting handle you have, and that's the type of handle that's with purpose, I'm sure. And
Mm-hmm.
can you explain a little bit about where that comes from, why you chose that, and what it means to you?
Yeah, so it definitely has purpose. It's actually a really deep meaning for me. When I was an adult, young adult, before kids, I went through some weird stuff. I'd have like a physical thing going on for 3 months, and I'd go get it checked out, and doctors would never find it. And the come away, the takeaway was always like, well, maybe you have anxiety. And I was like, nah, it's not anxiety. I'm not an anxious person. Um, and then we had our first kid. We had my son, and man, I had all these. I had a breathing issue for like a year. Um, couldn't find anything. They kept saying it's anxiety. It's anxiety. And I was like, no, no, no. I'm switching careers into becoming a writer. That's what I've always wanted to do. I had a son. I love my son. I love being a dad. Not anxious. And they're like, you might not feel anxious, but like those are two big changes at the same time: career change and first time father. You can still be anxious like deep down. And I fought it for a really long time. And then um, I kind of chuckle, but it's serious. I had like this like mental breakdown in a conversation with my son when he was little about meeting my dad, who I don't speak to. Um, and my little 3-year-old son, he's like, but if anyone could turn your dad, who's a bad guy, into a good guy, it's you, because you're like a superhero. And it got in my head, and I was like, oh my god, like, should I give him another chance? And it was like this, like, not quite midlife crisis, but it was like, I don't know, I call it like my mental breakdown moment.
Yeah.
And I sought therapy, and just kind of finally accepted that I had anxiety. Um, and therapy was game changing. Super happy I finally did it. Um, have worked out a bunch of stuff. I'm at peace with not talking to my dad. And it's just not really a thing anymore. So because I went through therapy and I've honestly enjoyed it so much and it's been life changing, now I kind of don't shut up about it, and I just promote it, and especially to men, especially to fathers, about just how helpful it is. Um, a friend of mine in all of that process was like, "Here, I think you would really like this book. It's called Daring Greatly by Brene Brown, and it's all about being transparent and vulnerable." And it just really like registered with me on uh, a couple of different levels. You know, being a dad, being vulnerable, and just speaking up about all of this. And so then I was going to create this public Instagram account, and I needed a catchy name, and I really liked the Daring Greatly book, and I was like, I kind of want to play off of that, and then it just clicked, and it fit perfectly. Switched Daring Greatly to Dadding Greatly, but kind of keep the same momentum, where it's like I'm a dad, but I'm vulnerable, and I talk about mental health struggles and the struggles of parenting, and how dads get overwhelmed too, and it's stuck, and it's, I don't know, I love it. I love this handle. But you're right, it has become like kind of like this persona a little bit. Like I have people that will DM me, or they'll like thank me for answering like a question or something, and they'll say thanks DG. And I'm like, and I just roll with it. I'm like, yeah, no problem. I'm like, that's DG, that's just who I am now.
That's funny. That's awesome, man. Um, that's interesting. So I'm just curious. So you said some of this, the anxiety, uh, uh, panic attack, midlife crisis thing, that whole conversation, that kind of um, pointed you in the direction of therapy. It started when you had a conversation with your son, and he's saying, "Hey, if anybody can basically change the heart and the mind of your dad, it could be you." What did that? I mean, you said you came to peace with just not having that relationship with your dad. What was that conversation like with your son once you came to that conclusion?
Um, well, first I waited for him to grow up a little bit,
Sure,
because, 3, 4 years old, they don't really understand. It's like you have a grandpa, but you're not allowed to meet him,
sure,
and they just don't really understand why. And the best you can kind of explain is like, well, you know how in movies there's good guys and bad guys? He's a bad guy.
yeah,
Like, we're good guys, and the good guys don't hang out with the bad guys. That was the best I could think to explain
makes sense.
it. So then it kind of goes away for a little bit, and then they get older and they start to ask questions again. And I think we've done a really good job of just being kind of really transparent and honest with our kids, and just answering as truthful as it makes sense.
Yeah,
um, so the conversation has kind of shifted from just like a vague, like, oh, he's a bad guy, to like, well, he's just not a good person. Here are some of the things, like, here's some snippets of things that he did when I was a kid. Like,
yeah,
he always yelled, and he was a little bit violent, and he was just flat out like scary. When I was your age, I would be scared when he would come home. Um, and that's just not like, that's not a good place to be in. That's not nice. And I think now that my kids are older, like, they completely understand. They're like, yeah, that sucks. Like,
sure.
we wouldn't want to hang out with you as much if you were mean and scary and made us feel like scared that you were gonna like throw something. Like, that's horrible. So they get it now. um totally on board. It helps that like my in-laws are like fabulous people. um so it's not like they're like completely missing out. Like, they have an awesome grandpa on the other side.
Sure.
um so they get it.
Yeah, that's awesome. But those are definitely difficult conversations to have, and so, but it's awesome that you went the therapy route, and then it kind of equipped you to have those conversations, or put your mind at ease so you could have those conversations. And that's one of the reasons we had you on this podcast too, is that I saw some of the stuff that you wrote and have been writing about as far as therapy, and I think it's a great thing because it's almost like it gives permission to people who maybe were in the same boat that you were, or some people that are like, I don't know if it's for me, kind of struggle with this idea of it, and some of the stuff you write, some of the stuff you post, and so even like you put questions out there and give people opportunities to answer on Instagram. I think it's an awesome thing, man, because it gives a safe space for people to either ask questions or maybe explore that therapy route themselves, which I think is a good thing. Because it is a challenging thing for people to do, because it means you have to be vulnerable, you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think the stereotype that I had going in, or not the stereotype, but like I was under the impression that like, this therapist is going to judge the junk out of me. And like, what if they go home to all of their family members and say like, oh my God, I had this client today that's a freaking disaster. And like, get this, ha ha ha. And they're like chuckling at my expense. But like, I don't know, you just have to realize like they went to school for this. This is their profession. Um, if they were, there's laws and regulations, like they can't talk about you. It's like a straight up HIPAA violation. They lose their license. So it's all like you can be insanely vulnerable. You can do the deepest dive you want to, and it's their job. They're not going to judge you. They can't talk about it afterwards. They're not even allowed to. So you can, I mean, as long as you're not saying like you're a danger to yourself or somebody else, like you can talk about literally anything you want. Some days I still go in today and I'm like, I don't really have anything to talk about. And we kind of just shoot the shit for an hour.
Yeah,
And in that process, something might come up and something might not come up. And it just turns into like, how was your week? What's your next week look like? Is there anything that's kind of on the horizon that might stress you out? And it could just be like a good thing to like get out ahead of.
sure. Well, that's the thing too. I think that people don't, and you could speak more to this, but I think some people think that their life or their life situation has to get to a point where things are going wild and it's chaotic and crazy, and then you jump into it. But really, it doesn't have to even get to that point, really, right? It really is for anybody at any
Mm-hmm.
stage of life. And there's probably things there that you could uncover or kind of let out that would be beneficial. So it's not like you have to have some kind of mental breakdown or panic attack or anything like that to start down a journey. You really can do it at any time, which I think is kind of a cool thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll give you a really good example. Is that this last time I went last week, I went in again saying like I don't think I have anything this week. I'm rolling pretty well. And she was like, "All right, let's look ahead. What's coming up?" And I was like, "Oh, we're going to the celebrity golf tournament in Tahoe next week." And she was like, "Oh, you must be super excited." And I was like, I'm actually kind of anxious about it. And she's like, "Well, where's your mind at?" And I was like, I mean, I'm already thinking like it's going to be super hot and it's going to be super crowded and we're going to be crammed in there like sardines and not even be able to move. And, you know, what if I miss like lunch because the line's too long and I don't want to lose my spot? And it was literally like, all right, let's map out everything one by one. Like hot, what are you going to do about the heat? Like take some sunblock, find some shade. You're allowed to walk around. You don't have to be parked in one spot. And it's just like that type of thing where it's like, it's kind of like a littler thing, like, oh, I'm going to a celebrity tournament. Like, how can you possibly be anxious about
Sure.
that? But here are these things. And then you kind of troubleshoot ahead of time. So now I'm going into this tournament, like, I already have a plan equipped for the heat, for the crowds, for lunchtime, for parking. Um, we already did like the 50 minutes of troubleshooting all the things that were giving me anxiety. So it helps. Now I'm going into this like with my kids and I'm already like a little bit more at ease.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's like you said, it's for the small things, for the big things, everything in between, or it's for the things that you don't even realize that you're currently dealing with, and they can kind of
Yep.
uncover some of that stuff, which is awesome. Um, I
Yep.
mean, as far as your family, obviously you're going to this golf tournament. Like, what are some of the ways as a dad? What are some of your favorite ways to connect with your kids and your wife and the whole family? Like, what are some of those things that you guys love doing that makes you feel more connected to them? And especially, knowing what you're um, that you had a difficult relationship or a non-relationship with your own dad. I'm sure those things really mean a lot, and I'm sure it's something you get excited about and are focused on. But like, what are some of those things that you guys do to become closer?
I mean, this is going to sound like the craziest secret ever to parenting, but it's literally as easy as just being there. So, like, I look back as an adult now and I think, what do I wish I had with my dad? Well, I wish he was there, like, at all. And the times he was there, he was yelling and kind of scary. And he would come to my little league games, and he would be the guy that was standing in left field with me, parallel to me, like coaching me from the fence and being annoying. And my mom, love her to death, she did the best she could, but like I wish she was like there a little more. Like she provided, um, but she was doing the best she could as a single mom. She was going back to school, so I kind of missed out on like it. A lot of times, like weekends, it was like go outside and play with your friends. Um, so I think of that as an adult now, and I want to do the opposite. Like I just want to be there. I want to go to the baseball games and just watch as a fan, and then afterwards, like let them reflect, let them tell me how they think the game went. I go to my daughter's dance recital, and same thing. I just want to be there. I want to make sure she knows that I'm there. I watched. I'm giving her flowers after. Um, and then even at home, it's just kind of just taking those things that they like, and sometimes you just kind of got to eat it. Like I don't like playing board games, but these guys
Sure.
love playing board games, and when I say yes, I'll play the board game, they get so excited, even though it's sorry and I'm not going to let them win. I'll
Yeah.
sit down and play sorry with them, and it's just
Yeah.
like the little interactions like that like makes them so happy. Baseball season ended, and my son yesterday was like, will you go play catch with me? And I was just thinking in my head, like, we've been doing baseball every day for 6 months. It's hot. I'm tired. I'm burnt out. I was like, you know what, though? Like, screw it. Let's go play catch for 10 minutes. And he's just like so happy. Made his whole entire day to play 10 minutes of catch with me. Um, so it's really that simple. Just be there. Just find a way, find what they love to do, and just do it with them. Like, if my kid tomorrow woke up and liked Pokemon, like I would try my best to learn Pokemon with him so that we had that like connection, you know.
Yeah.
So it's really kind of dumbly simple.
No, it's true though, man. It's it's funny. I feel like a lot of parents come on the show and they say the very same thing. It is just it's showing up, as cliche as it may seem. It's
Hmm.
showing up. It's paying attention. It's showing that you care. And yeah, and how many times does that situation happen to people where, like you said, you're exhausted from the day. One of the kids comes and wants to
Hmm.
play some game with you, and your first thing is like, I don't really want to, but I always tell people I feel like that regret of not doing that in the moment, as small as it may be, when you look back at it from down the road, is way worse than being a little tired in the moment and just kind of sucking it up and doing it. And so, I mean, I think that's great advice. That's for me. That's advice that never gets old. I think, like you said, it's simple, but it's important, and I think it's a good reminder for everybody just to take those moments, because you only get so many of those moments, and so you got to take them when you get them.
For sure.
And so, yeah, there's nothing, and it's simple too, man. Like you said, you can just spending time. You can basically do anything. There's no special formula. There's no special thing that you have to do. It's even the simplest thing. So I feel like in a weird way, it takes some pressure off people too. Just knowing that spending time, caring, paying attention is the best way you can connect with your family. Like, I think it's a cool thing, man. Now, um, do they? I know we talked a lot. We'll get into it a little bit too. You are big into softball, the slow pitch softball world. Do they
Hmm.
come out and watch you, or is that kind of you just do that on your own?
It's pretty hit and miss. I think when they were littler, they used to come more often, but now that they have all of their own stuff going
Sure.
on, they have they haven't been to one of my games in a while.
Yeah.
Um, and it kind of bugged me at first because it was like, man, I go to all of your stuff. Like, you can come to one of my games
Yeah.
once a week, every once in a while, right?
Sure.
But it's almost kind of become like, because I do so much stuff with them now, it's kind of my like getaway time. Like, it's definitely like my me time to just roll out to Davis, play a 50-minute softball game, 55-minute softball, like stick around, have a beer if I want,
Sure.
just chat up the dudes, and then head home. And I don't have to worry about like wrangling kids from the playground, or the inevitable like, I'm hungry, can we stop somewhere on the way back? Like,
Sure.
it's very like mind clearing, and it's not like it's putting anybody out. It's literally like 55 minutes once a week.
Right. How's that going right now? Are you avoiding the injuries and all that stuff? Because I know last time you mentioned that that's kind of that seems to be the goal. You try to avoid the injuries, but the way you play, it's hard to do that. So what's the status right now?
Uh Yeah, I've definitely transitioned from like be the best person out there to it switched at some point to just have fun.
Sure.
And then that at the beginning of this year transitioned to just don't get hurt. So my kids like to tell me that when I leave. They go, "All right, have fun, don't get hurt." And I'm like, God, am I that old that you have to remind me not to get hurt? And it was funny because the last game I played, I was just telling one of the guys on the other team out there that like I'm too old and I don't slide anymore. I've cut up my knee too much. And then I dove on the infield for a ball and made like this outstanding play, but it was not 2 minutes after I said I don't do that anymore.
Of course.
But it's like the young ball player in me takes over sometimes, and it's like I see the ball and I'm like, I'm not letting this get past me, and I dive, and I flip the ball, and I'm like, yes, like that was awesome, I still got it, and then I look down at my knee and it's all bloody, and I'm like, whew, that's gonna hurt tomorrow. That I'm not sure that
Yeah.
was worth it.
I'm going to feel that one for sure.
Yep, yep.
Well, that's
That
cool,
was a
man.
solid week ago. I still have a pretty gnarly scab, but
Yeah, it's like that's what people say, man. We don't recover as quickly, right? As we get older. Takes a little longer to bounce
oh
back
god, it takes
from those types of
forever.
things.
100%.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome, man. And I love that you're still out there playing, staying competitive. I feel like all that stuff. I mean, I imagine that's got to help with the mental side of things too, right? It's not therapy, but it is a way to, an outlet for you to kind of get some of that energy out. Probably clear your mind a little bit, like you said,
Hmm.
kind of step away from normal life and just enjoy something. So, besides that, like, is there anything else that you love doing that kind of allows you to kind of free up your mind a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, working out is a fantastic outlet. My wife does a Zoom workout group every day at like noon, and that's kind of her thing. Like it's just an agreement between the two of us. Like even if the kids are home from 12 to 12:45, like I'm on duty.
Sure.
Like nobody comes through that door. Because we all see it. Like if she gets her workout in, like she's a completely like different person. I'm not saying like she's like horrible to deal with if she doesn't get her workout
Sure.
in, but like you can just kind of see it. The stress from the day wears on you. But if you go half a day, then work it out, and then you got the rest of the day. Um, it's just so much easier. Um, I was doing kickboxing down the street with a neighbor. He's got a really cool gym.
Oh, nice.
Um, that's really fun if you can get into like a low pressure um, environment where you can just like work one on one with somebody and just kick and punch some bags. Like that's really fun.
Nice.
Um, Beyond that, I actually just re-upped my gym membership and started going back to the gym now that baseball's over. Um, so that's been really nice. Just anything that you can kind of get that like physical. I heard this somewhere and I don't know the exact quote, but it's like you get rid of the mental stuff by like physically getting it out of your system.
Sure.
Um, and I the other day I was like mid lifting and I remember that quote and I was like I can literally feel the stress like leaving my body.
Yeah.
Um, so big fan of that. Um, Other than that, I mean, we had like Little League, we were coaching and we're really only allowed like three coaches in the
Hmm.
dugout. I don't even know why that's a rule, but we had four coaches. So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna teach myself photography and do like action shots.
That's cool.
And so it was kind of a nice way to like be involved with the game,
Yeah.
but also kind of like not stress out about what was happening. Because at some point as a coach, like you coach as much as you can, and then come game time, it's like they got to do it now. Like you're not on the field fielding the ball.
100%.
But being somebody with anxiety, like I'm still like my stomach's all knotted up and I'm like the error by the 9-year old is like eating me up and it's like, all right, I gotta remember they're just 9 and 10.
Yeah.
So doing this photography thing on the side was kind of nice because it I was still there at the game and I was still watching, but I was kind of like I would take pictures of this shot and then I would immediately like look down at the camera and kind of see like, did I get the shot? And then I'd be making adjustments on the camera instead of like dwelling on what just happened. So that was kind of weirdly peaceful in a way too.
That makes sense, man. I agree 100% with all the physical stuff. It does just help, get that release out there and some of the tension and frustration. It just helps you relax a little bit, which is one of the biggest benefits of it. But it's interesting. Photography thing is interesting, man. You're just adding one more thing to the plate.
Yeah, I did. I did it. at some point kind of feel like I bit off a little more than I could chew. Because I also, on top of that, I used to be a sports writer before I worked in marketing and internal. So I was like, oh, I'll bust out my sports writing skills here and I'll write up like post game recaps. And the parents absolutely loved it because, I mean, what parent doesn't want to see like, and then their kid did this and this, and it's like a nice little reminder. And then they emailed it out to like grandparents and
Yeah,
people who didn't get to watch the game. And so like, keep these coming. And so then it was like, oh crap, now I got to like coach these kids during the week, then watch the game in the evening, keep the dugout kind of organized, take the pictures, but then I got to take notes so I can write the game
sure.
recaps. Um, but I mean, really, it's kind of just comes down to your own boundaries. At some point, I was like, I think I've gotten a couple of solid pictures of every kid now. So, and I've already sent it to their parents. So I'm going to set down the camera. And if I miss a game recap, I miss a game recap. Like, I'm not going to like put this added pressure on myself that I have to do this.
Right.
Um, so boundaries come up huge,
Yeah, that makes
especially
sense.
self boundaries.
No, man, 100%. I think we talked about that last time too, because that's it's an interesting thing. It's great to do all these things, but the people who don't have those boundaries and who can't manage all that, at some point it's gonna catch up to them in some area of life, which is never what you want. And then you look at some people, it's like, man, they're able to do all these things, and it seems like it doesn't affect them necessarily in a negative way. And I think those people have figured out how to do it. They found out how to prioritize. They figured out how to manage everything
Mm-hmm.
they're doing and put up boundaries. So it's like I think we're all capable of doing a lot of things, but it does require the boundaries. And I think I imagine that's something that probably came from the therapy side, right? Like they probably was that ever a difficult thing for you, the boundaries and knowing when to say no, knowing when to say yes, trying to figure out all that stuff. I imagine like that was probably a big benefit of therapy, but I don't know, maybe that's something that's always been in you. Maybe you've always been able to put up boundaries.
No, not really. Like I'm always kind of the person that wanted to do all the things. Like, I mean, just that last example, I wanted to coach and I wanted to be at the game as a fan also, but then I was teaching myself photography. Then I was also trying to write the game recaps. Um, I'm just doing all the things and then it turns into just doing too much.
Sure.
So, you get overwhelmed and that's another benefit of going to therapy, man. You go and you're like, I'm feeling super tired. I'm overwhelmed. I'm easily frustrated. Like, and then it's like, well, take a look at what all you're doing. And it's like, okay, well, you're working full time. Then you're a dad. You're doing side work for nonprofits. You're also coaching Little League. You're teaching yourself photography. You're doing these game recaps. You're also supposed to play softball and do this me time stuff. And you're also supposed to be a good spouse and help out around the house and stay connected with your wife. And it's like, and I remember my therapist saying like, okay, well, I assume you financially can't quit your full-time job. Nope. And you can't quit being a dad. Nope. Do you want to quit being a husband? Nope. Okay, well, we're narrowing it down which one you got to take away. And it finally came to a point where it was like, I don't want to give up being a little league coach. So I need to step away from like the side work. That's the one that makes sense. So, you know, side money is really fun. It's play money,
Yeah.
or if you have it for extra bills. I mean, it's not play money for everybody. I understand that, but in my case, it was play money. So it was like we just need to be okay with me stepping away from that so that I can be like full full tilt with the kids and with Little League, and then I can reevaluate once that ends. So just kind of setting that boundary and knowing when you're tapped and hopefully before you get completely tapped and overwhelmed,
Yeah.
and just looking at like what do I have to keep and what can I walk away from, knowing that I don't have to walk away from it forever. I can come back to it at some point.
I think that's a big part of it. Is for some people, I think they have a tough time walking away because they think it's the end, it's final, right? If I walk away from it now, I'll never be able to go back. And I think for a lot of things, that's not the
Mm-hmm.
case. There's some of that stuff that's always there that you can always go back to, but the things that you can't go back to, as we've already talked about, is being a dad, is the moments with your kids. uh, I'm sure you see a decent amount of those things on Instagram where they talk about that, and then it's brutal to watch as a dad sometimes. And you're looking at it's like you only have so many moments, and then like the music's playing behind it.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I didn't need to
Yeah,
see
I
this right
know.
now. But it's true though. Like all those things are true. Like you can't get those moments back, and so those are gonna be
Yeah.
the biggest regrets if you don't take the time to do it. So I think that prioritization of life is really important, but it's difficult though too, 'cause especially when you're passionate about things. When there's things you're passionate about, you want to make it all work and you want to do it all. But at the end of the day, it's just not humanly possible to do all those things and then do them well if your schedule's too crammed. So
Hmm.
it's I appreciate the fact that you're able to find that balance and find a way to manage all this stuff. And you made the difficult choice to kind of cut something that you felt was not necessary right
Hmm.
now. You know what I mean? So hopefully people hear that and kind of take some notes. I think it's an important thing to do. But that being said, I know the nonprofits are a big part of your life, and we talked about this last time. So, what
Yeah.
even though you're not doing it in the same capacity, what are a couple of nonprofits that are maybe around here in Sacramento, or maybe they're beyond this area, that you would recommend people should get involved with and check out?
Yeah. So first of all, there's like 800. There's probably more, but I'm pretty active in Big Day of Giving, which happens the first Thursday of May every year, and it's the big 24-hour fundraising uh, extravaganza. I don't know if that's the right word. Shenanigans, maybe.
There you go.
Um, but this last year, I think almost 800 nonprofits participated. So I mean, there's really something out there for everyone. If you are wanting to help kids in foster care, um, there's all kinds of animal shelter type rescues. Um, every kind of arts you can think of. There's creative writing. There's music. There's singing. There's dancing. Um, there's a women's roller derby. Um, I mean, there's literally like something for everyone. I promise you. So, you could wait till May and start kind of looking around. I know it's literally bigdayofgiving.org. You can find all the different nonprofits and kind of search through and look at their info and see what their mission is and find something that fits. So again, I mean, it's really all about what you're interested in. I love to write, so I know one that stands out for me is a group called 916 Inc. They do creative writing workshops in classrooms. They also host kind of like it's basically like an after school program where you come to their campus and you just write, and they get these kids published. So that could potentially be a game changer if you're trying to get into sports writing, news writing, creative writing, whatever, and you're a published author at 12 years old already. Like that's got to look really good on the resume.
Yeah,
Um, and I didn't have anything like that when I was a kid that I know of.
sure.
Um, I wish I had something like that. So that's really cool. Um, I've worked with foster youth. SAC Children's Home does really good work. Um, they actually have a program called the Crisis Nursery Program. That particular program of the SAC Children's Home is like really near and dear to my heart. Um, I could talk about it for days, but in a 20-second nutshell, they basically take kids 0 to 5, like newborn to 5, whose families are just going through like extreme crisis. Um, you know, for instance, like mom packs up the kid and what she can fit in the car and throws a dart at a map and it lands on Sacramento. She's in Sacramento to escape domestic violence. She got here overnight. She doesn't know anybody. She has no job. She has no house. So she can, go to the crisis nursery. They can kind of help take care of the kiddo while she's taking uh, interviews. She's filling out paperwork for housing, stuff like that. And the nursery is really cool. It takes care of everything: diapers, baths, food. Like you don't have to worry about a single thing. Um, the nursery staff are great and they handle it. So I've seen that program change lives personally. It's been really cool. So shout out to them. Um, I've worked with Team Bradshaw. They are like the fundraising affiliate for Bradshaw Animal Shelter. Um, and that one's really cool. You walk by the shelter and a dog is limping. Like nobody's gonna. How many people are gonna be like, "Oh yeah, I'll take the dog with the limp."
Sure.
They'll probably skip over it. So this team kind of steps in. They fundraise for a surgery to get that dog's hip or leg or whatever it is fixed, so that particular dog has as good of a chance to get adopted as any other dog there. Um, when in, before that surgery, they probably wouldn't. So that one's really cool. I know they do really good work there. There's just so many good ones. You could literally Google like nonprofits in Sacramento, and I would venture to guess the Big Day Giving website probably comes up,
Sure.
but you'll get a ton.
Is there? So I've worked with some different nonprofits in the past, and I know that there's different websites out there that kind of, um, they rate them, they kind of give backgrounds, they kind of tell how legit they are. Do you have any suggestions for people as far as ways they can, kind of, I guess, vet these different nonprofits that they might be interested in?
Yeah. I'm honestly kind of blanking on like there's two big ones, two big websites that kind of like give their stamp of approval for nonprofits.
Is it
Um,
GuideStar?
and GuideStar's one of them.
Yeah,
Um, I'm blanking on the other one,
I am too.
but I will say if a nonprofit has that stamp of approval, I guarantee they will put that somewhere on their homepage. It'll
Sure.
probably be at the bottom. So if you are looking at a nonprofit's website, I would say scroll down to the bottom and you'll see in their footer or something like we're a gold star member designated by this website, or we have 4 stars on GuideStar or something like that. If you get that 4 or 5 star approval or that gold stamp approval, um, you're definitely going to brag about it. So
For
because
sure.
it's a big deal.
Absolutely. Hey man, I want to make sure I'm respectful of your time. Obviously, you're really busy. It's funny. I have one more question for you. I did not ask you last time, but I'm curious to hear. It's actually a question I ask my other podcast. But when it's all said and done, at the end of the day, obviously you have the handle, dating greatly. Everything you've said here. Your work with nonprofits, your role as a spouse, your role as a dad, everything that you do as a coach, even that's all feeding into your legacy, right? The legacy you're going to leave at the end of the day. But from your perspective, in your mind, in your heart, what do you want your legacy to be like? What do you want people to say about Nick Hauser when it's all said and done? Like, what do you want them to say about your life um, at the end of the day?
I mean, it's super simple. I really just want people to be able to look back and say, "Man, he was a good person.
Mm,
Like that guy was good
yeah,
people." That's it. That's like the one line that I kind of hope to just leave people with is like that dude was good people. Um, as long as I'm like doing the good work and it's meaningful and I'm not doing it for ulterior motives or personal gain or anything like that. So I don't want to leave anybody with like this taste in their mouth where they're like, man, that dude seemingly did good work, but he was shady, or you know what I mean? Like,
sure.
I just even with the kids I coach, like I want them. I'm sure half of them will forget me, but if one or a couple of them are in like high school and they're like, man, one of my favorite coaches ever was Coach Nick back in AAA baseball and Little League. Like that's all I want. Like just have like a good memory of me. The complete opposite of my dad, where like I remember him as like being scary and I always wanted to leave. I just want the complete opposite,
Mm,
where like anybody who hangs out with me, I've coached, has been a student, whatever, is just I really enjoyed hanging out with that guy. He was good people.
that's perfect, man. We can just
That's
drop the
it.
mic right there. That's the way we wrap this thing up, man. I love it. Uh, where can people follow you on social media? All those different things. Where can the people get in touch with you if they wanted to? I think you mentioned that last time. If not, just you can tell me. I can cut that. If you don't want people to get in touch with you, let me know. But I'm pretty sure you were cool with that last time. So give us the social media and all that stuff.
Yeah, for sure. I'm most active on Instagram. It's just dadding greatly. It's no spaces, so it all rolls together. Dadding greatly. Um, I encourage people if they're kind of curious about therapy or anything like that, feel free to DM me. I'm a really, really open book about it. I'm really not going to hold anything back. I'm going to give the caveat that I'm not a therapist and that I might say something that doesn't work for you. It's different people, different situations, but I've had people jump in and say like, hey, do you ever feel judged when you say something like, what's like the deepest thing you've ever said to a therapist? And I'll just put it out there and say like, dude, we've talked about this before. And I didn't feel any judgment. So Instagram is the number one. I do have a blog. I have been really bad about writing in it. It's the same. It's daddinggreatly.wordpress, or wordpress.daddinggreatly. That's how frequently I write in it. I don't even know the address. It's linked on my Instagram.
Yeah.
But I'd say Instagram number one, the blog number two. I cut Facebook, and it has been amazing.
I have no doubt.
Not saying everybody needs to go cut Facebook, but man, got rid of X, got rid of Threads, got rid of Facebook.
It makes a big difference, man. Trying to narrow those things down.
It does.
So sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
For sure. No, you're good.
Yeah,
That's it. So I'm happy if anybody wants to jump in and DM me. Let's talk.
Perfect.
I'm not bashful.
And that's why we had you on the podcast, man. That's the whole point of Connectable, is to get connected with people and hopefully give people an opportunity to get connected with you. Excuse me. So again, man, thank you so much for sharing your story a little bit. Thank you for hopping on here a second time. I feel much more confident this time around that everything recorded the correct way. So we should be good, man. Fingers crossed, because I always hate when that happens with the guests. But yes, thank you for being kind enough to hop back on here. And hey, man, enjoy the rest of your summer with your family and all those different things. And good luck with everything that's coming up for you.
Thank you. Thank you. Much appreciated.
Absolutely. Thanks for watching the show. If you enjoyed that episode, make sure you like it, share it, and hit the subscribe button to get a new episode every week. We'll see you next time on the Connectable podcast.